Okay, so we've got completed rounds 1 right through to 4, so now we're going to do rounds 5 and round 6, which complete the actual flower itself. If you're using the yarn suggested, this colour is rose, so use whichever substitution you've got for that. And the first instruction is to join the yarn into any double crochet made on the previous round by working 1 chain and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. So we need to find a double crochet, and I'm going to put this right in the center, folks. If I give that a little tug, right, this V here is the stitch. This hole here is the top of the stitch, which you can see, sorry, is just off to the right. And as you all know by now, I'm a bit OCD now. I have a bit of a problem with neatness. So rather than have it go off on a kilter, I'm going to insert my hook right in the center of the V of the body of the stitch, and that's what I'm going to do the whole way around on this particular round. Okay, that just makes it look more central. If I was to go into the top of the stitch, it would knock it off to the right just a little bit, but these things sometimes matter to some people. If it doesn't matter, you continue to do it in the top of the stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook, and as you can see, it is right in the center of that stitch there. And as it suggests, I'm going to pull up and chain 1 and double crochet into the same space, and as you can see, that is bang in the center of that double crochet in round 4. Okay, so we've joined that. Now it wants us to do 5 trebles into the next chain space. So this is the chain here, the space is what's underneath. So we will do 5 trebles. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll just check. Yep. And then we have to put a double crochet into the next stitch, which is the double crochet. And again, like I had when I joined, I'm putting this bang in the center of the double rather than the top of the stitch. And I'll do a couple more petals, and then I'll discuss counting stitches and identifying different parts of the stitch. So now we're repeating the same action again. So 5 trebles into the chain space. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then double again. I'm going right into the center of that stitch like so. I'm pulling up. I'll show you the back. You can see it's bang in the center at the back as well. Okay, it can be a little bit awkward to find it first, so again, it depends how bothered you are by neatness. But once you get used to having a try that once or twice, it becomes a bit easier to do. So we'll continue. So we'll do 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 trebles, and again double into the double like so. I'll complete all the petals actually, and then I'll discuss counting, and then I don't get myself lost. That's 3, 4, 5, and then again double crochet dead center. You see, I've gone off. I've gone off into what would have been the top of the stitch, but as you can see, it does take you off to the right a little bit there. So I'm going to take my hook out and I'm going to try again. It's the bit at the back that it's a bit at the back that's a bit foxing, so we'll go through and off we go. And then 5 trebles into the space. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again centre of the stitch, like so. Pull that through. On the next one I'll show you the back where the hook comes out. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So I'm going to insert my hook into the centre, and that's how it looks. So you have a strand on that side of your hook and on that side of your hook, and this is the back of the piece of work. So you're going centrally through the double crochet on the front and the back of your piece of work. And then we just complete that double. And we're almost there. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now this is can be a bit confusing. It isn't necessarily, but this is where we started. So this first strand here, that is the actual one chain that we used to attach the yarn in round 4, and this V here is the stitch. So when I'm going to insert my hook, it's going to be in the stitch. I'm not going to be putting it where the slip stitch is, so it's going in there. Okay, so I'm going to put it in there, out the other side, and I've gone off piece. I went into the top of the stitch again. There, so in the centre, dead centre. There's nothing, because of the chain one, there's really nothing, we can't really get rid of that. There's nothing we can do about it. So anyway, we'll complete this through 2, 3, 4 and 5. And now the pattern would suggest that you slip stitch into the first stitch that we made, but again I'm going to finish just as I have with every other round. So I'm going to cut my yarn and pull that through, and then thread, but I'm still going to join it exactly the same. So I'm going to find the top. So again, we've got a strand to the right here, that is the turning chain, then the stitch itself, and it's the V on top of the stitch that we want to insert our needle into. So again, we're going through both strands of the V at the top, front through to the back, like so, and then back down the centre of the V on the very last treble that we did, pulling that out to the back. And I'm going to just pull that enough to hide it, because we don't want to see it this time. It's not part of the pattern, but I'm still going to finish it off by doing the bump at the back. And now, because I know there's one more round to go, I'm going to weave it around just like I have with every other one. And then when I finish weaving, I'll do a little bit on counting the stitches, because these will be a bit easier to see, and then we'll do round 6. I'll just deal with our starting yarn tail, And again, just weave it up where you can so it's practically invisible. And again, weave in the opposite direction to the ending tail. Just keep going. Right. Okay, so that's the flower completed. Now then, very quickly to talk about counting stitches. Just through teaching crochet, it's highlighted quite a lot that people tend to just count the V's across the top of the stitches. And although that is not necessarily the wrong thing to do, a good way of making sure that your count is right is to count the post of the stitch as well. So if I just give this little petal a tug here, it'll make things a bit clear. So this here is the post of the stitch. So we've got 5 posts here. Now the top of this first treble here is this V here, just off to the right, and if I tug, you'll see the natural hole that emerges, and it's just off to the right. That is the top of that post there. And slip stitches can create such problems if you're only counting the top of the stitch, because when you do a slip stitch, it looks very similar to the top of a complete stitch, and it can throw your count out and it can be very frustrating. So my advice is that don't just count the top, also count the post. Another reason for counting the post and the top as well is that you can, if you're in the throes of just crocheting quite quickly and you're in flow and you're doing really well, you can by accident decrease 2 stitches together. So you might have 2 posts, but you'll only have 1 V at the top. So when you come to work the next round, you're going to be a stitch short. And that was highlighted when I was doing some of the rows in part 2. When I was doing the half trebles around in the square, because I was working so fast at one point, I actually didn't fully complete one stitch before starting the other one. So when it was complete, I had 2 posts, but I only had 1 V on the top. So when I came to do the next round, my count was always going to be out. So all I can really say is count the post as well as the V on the top, and always remember, if you're right-handed, the top of your stitch is just off to the right, and if you're left-handed, I would believe it would be just off to the left. So that's just my tip of the day. So what we'll do now is the very last round on this flower, which is cream if you're sticking to the pattern. In my case, I've just used white. But what it's asking us to do is again join in the centre of a DC made on the previous round with a chain and a DC to follow. So we're going into the centre of the pink double crochet this time to join. And like I said, it takes a little bit to find something, doesn't it? I'll pick a different one because there's a tail there getting in the way. Right. So I'm in the front of it there, and I'm just turning over to make sure I come out the back. Okay. And as before, there's a strand on the left and there's a strand on the right of the hook. Okay. So chain 1. And double crochet into the same stitch. So as you can see, that chain 1 there creates a V as well. So your chain 1 can sometimes knock your count out if you're just counting the V's across the top. Just another little tip. So we'll come through and do a double. Right. Now we need to work 1 double crochet into the next stitch. So the next one, that's the post, and that's where we're going to insert our hook, just off to the right. Okay, so one in there, and then it wants us to put 2 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and we should be left with 1 post, which we are, and 1 V just there, of which we want to put 1 double crochet in there. So that's finished the top of that petal off for you. Okay, and then to finish off, we've got to put a double crochet in the center of that double crochet in the previous round. And I've gone off again. Oh, this is the joining one, is it? Yep, it was the joining one. So there's an extra strand to just bear in mind. So there, and then we're just repeating the action. So 1 double crochet into the first, 2 double crochet into the next 3 petals, stitches of the petal, sorry. Oh. 1, 2, 1 in the final petal, stitch in the petal, and then again back into the center of the double. Like so. And then off we go again. So 1 and 3 with 2 in. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2. 1 in the final treble of the petal, and then a double in the center of the double in the previous round. And I'm just going to continue round. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, then center of the stitch, like so, and then continue with the petal. Well, it's just a repeat of previous actions. So 1 in the first one, 2 in the next 3, 1 in the last one, and then 1 right in the center of that double. 3 petals to go. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and in the center. Yep. Okay. Next one. 1, and 2 in the next 3. 1 center. Sorry, I've gone off camera. I couldn't see where I was going. There we are. And last petal. So 1, 2 in the 3, in the middle, 2, 1, 2, 1, and 2, 1 in the last one. And I'm going to finish the same, but obviously reading ahead in the pattern, I know that we're not going to be working into this round anymore, so I'm going to finish it off the same with the hidden sort of stitch, but then I'll be weaving it right into the back of the piece of work, but I'll show you that. So again, the first strand is the turning, is the one chain to join, and then we're going under the 2 strands of the double crochet and down the last treble, pull enough so as not to see. So instead of coming back up, I'm going to just turn this piece over, and I'm just going to weave my end in across the top here in the same direction I would if I was weaving it through the V's in the top, but I'm weaving it so it can't be seen just through the back. So the V's there, it's just through the back of the V, like so. And I'm going to do that probably for about 2 petals to make sure it ain't coming out. And then I'll snip all the ends off, people, because I know some individuals were having a bit of a mare with round 7, and if I've got all these tails, it'll be hard for me to help show you where I would put the hook to join the green. So I'll just do a few across the middle of here. 1, right, I'll leave that at that. And I'm just going to do exactly the same with the initial tail from joining. I'm going to weave it up, but not right up to the top, just up so it's just below where I would have put it had we been working into the next round. And again, just weave it in the opposite direction so you're not creating bulk by going over the same place as the other tail. I'll be honest, folks, I would probably use a smaller darning needle, but for the purposes of showing you, I thought the bigger needle would be easier for you to see. That's why it looks more difficult than it actually is. Promise. Okay. Just pull that through. So that's the front. All finished. Nice and lovely jubbly. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to just snip off the tails. And all I do is just give the tail a tug enough for it to just pull through a bit, and then just slide my scissors down till it touches the work, but no further down because I don't want to nick any of my stitches. Just pull, snip, pull and snip, snip. It's quite satisfying doing this and knowing that you haven't got to weave it in because you've already done it. So unless you're a big fan of weaving in, I know sometimes people enjoy the weaving in because it kind of signifies the end of a piece of work, but it ain't my favourite thing to do. So that's the back of the flower, and that is the front. And I'll see you for round 7 and 8. I hope this has been helpful. Happy hooking. See you later, peeps.